They say blood is thicker than water. But what happens when greed is thicker than both? My name is Sarah Mitchell, and this is the story of how my stepmother tried to steal everything my father built, and almost got away with murder. But this isn't just a story about betrayal and inheritance. This is a story about manipulation, lies that span decades, and a web of deceit so complex that it took months to unravel. By the time you finish listening to this, you'll understand that sometimes the people sleeping in the same house as you are the most dangerous predators of all. It was a Tuesday morning when I got the call that changed everything. I was in my Chicago apartment getting ready for work when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Is this Sarah Mitchell?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Mercy General Hospital in Portland. I'm calling about your father, Robert Mitchell. I'm so sorry to inform you. He passed away this morning." The phone slipped from my hand. My father? Dead? The world seemed to tilt sideways. I gripped the edge of my kitchen counter, trying to steady myself. This couldn't be happening. Not Dad. Not now. He was only 62. I had just talked to him 3 days ago. He sounded fine, healthy, happy, even. He was planning a fishing trip to Alaska that summer. He'd been excited, telling me about the lodge he'd booked, the salmon runs, how he wanted me to come with him for at least a week. "We need to reconnect, Sarah," he'd said. "Just you and me, like the old days." I'd promised I would. I'd promised. What happened? I managed to ask after picking up the phone with shaking hands. Heart attack. Massive. He was brought in by his wife around 6 a.m., but we couldn't save him. We did everything we could. I'm very sorry for your loss. His wife, Linda, my stepmother of 4 years, the woman my father married 2 years after my mother died from cancer. Linda Chen, a 45-year-old former pharmaceutical sales rep who swept my grieving father off his feet with her charm, her cooking, and her seemingly genuine care. I never trusted her. Not from the first moment I met her. I remember the first time Dad introduced us. It was at a restaurant in downtown Portland, one of those trendy farm-to-table places. Dad had been nervous, I could tell. He kept adjusting his tie, clearing his throat. "Sarah, there's someone I want you to meet." Linda had walked in wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her smile was perfect. Too perfect. Like she'd practiced it in the mirror. "Sarah, I've heard so much about you." She'd hugged me before I could extend my hand for a handshake. Her perfume was overwhelming expensive, but too much of it. Throughout dinner, she'd said all the right things. She asked about my job, my hobbies, my life in Chicago. She laughed at Dad's jokes. She touched his hand affectionately. She seemed perfect. But I noticed things. Little things. The way her eyes would go cold when Dad looked away. The way she calculated the price of everything on the menu before ordering. The way she steered the conversation away whenever Dad started talking about my mother. "Robert, darling, let's not dwell on sad things," she'd said, squeezing his hand. "Tonight is about new beginnings, isn't it?" After dinner in the parking lot, Dad had asked me what I thought. I should have been honest. I should have told him that something felt off, that Linda seemed more interested in his wallet than his heart, that the whole thing felt rushed and wrong. But Dad looked happy. Happier than he'd been since Mom died. And who was I to ruin that? I was 24, living in another state, building my own life. If Linda made him happy, wasn't that enough? "She seems nice, Dad," I'd said. "If she makes you happy, I'm happy." The relief on his face had been palpable. "She does, sweetheart. She really does. I know no one can replace your mother, but Linda, she's given me a reason to look forward to tomorrow again." They were married 3 months later. Small ceremony, just a few close friends. Linda had insisted on small and intimate. "I just want to focus on our love," she told Dad. "Not some big production. I'd flown in for the wedding." Linda's daughter Jessica was there, a quiet, nervous girl who barely made eye contact. She was 22 then, had just graduated from community college with an associate's degree in business. Jessica's been through so much. Linda had told anyone who would listen. Her father died when she was 12. "We've struggled, but Robert has given us both a second chance at happiness." The struggling part seemed odd given Linda's designer wardrobe, but I didn't push it. All of these memories flooded back as I sat on my apartment floor, phone still in my hand, trying to process what the hospital had just told me. Dad was gone. I called my boss, told him I needed emergency leave. I threw clothes into a suitcase without really seeing what I was packing. I booked the first flight to Portland. During the entire 5-hour journey, including a layover in Denver, my mind raced. Dad had been healthy. He exercised regularly, played golf twice a week, watched his diet, had regular checkups. His doctor had told him just 6 months ago that he had the heart of a 50-year-old. A massive heart attack out of nowhere? It didn't make sense. I tried calling Linda multiple times during my layover. She didn't answer. I tried texting. No response. Finally, as I was boarding my connecting flight, I got a text. At the house making arrangements. See you when you arrive. Making arrangements? He'd been dead for less than 12 hours and she was already making arrangements? When I arrived at my childhood home, a beautiful craftsman-style house in the West Hills with a view of Mount Hood that my father had bought when I was 5 years old, there were already cars in the driveway. Lots of them. Linda was there, surrounded by people I didn't recognize. She wore black, a designer black dress that she must have already owned because there hadn't been time to go shopping. Her eyes were red from crying, a tissue clutched in her manicured hand, and she was leaning on Jessica for support. When she saw me getting out of my Uber, her face transformed into a mask of grief. "Sarah!" she cried, rushing over with open arms. "Oh, Sarah, it's terrible, just terrible." He went so suddenly. I still can't believe it. Your poor father. My poor Robert. I stiffened in her embrace. Something felt wrong. Her perfume was too strong, the same overwhelming scent from that first dinner. Her grief felt performed, like she was acting in a play. The way she said, "my poor Robert," instead of "your father," or just "Robert," felt possessive, territorial. "What exactly happened, Linda?" I asked, pulling away from her. She dabbed at her eyes with the tissue. He woke up around 5:30 complaining of chest pain and shortness of breath. I knew immediately something was wrong. I called 911 right away, didn't even think, just grabbed the phone and called. But by the time the ambulance arrived and we got to the hospital, she broke down crying, her shoulders shaking. The doctors said there was nothing they could do. His heart just gave out. Just stopped. My poor Robert. Had he been feeling sick? Any symptoms before this? Any indication something was wrong? Linda's eyes flickered just for a second, a micro-expression I almost missed before she shook her head vigorously. No, nothing. He seemed perfectly fine. He was in such good spirits yesterday. We had dinner together, watched some TV, talked about maybe taking a trip to Hawaii for our anniversary next month. Then we went to bed around 10:30, and everything seemed normal. Then this morning, she broke down crying again. Jessica, Linda's daughter from her first marriage, appeared and put her arm around her mother protectively. Jessica was 26 now, 2 years younger than me, with sharp features and sharper eyes. She'd changed since the wedding, more confident, more polished. She wore expensive clothes now, carried a designer purse. "Mom's been through so much," Jessica said, looking at me with what seemed like sympathy but felt more like a warning. "We all have. Your father was a wonderful man. He was so good to us, so generous. We're all devastated." The way she emphasized generous made my skin crawl. I nodded slowly, but my investigative instincts were already firing. I'm a financial analyst, trained to spot irregularities, anomalies, patterns that don't fit the data. I'd spent the last 6 years examining corporate financial statements, finding hidden liabilities, uncovering fraud, and everything about this situation felt irregular. The timeline didn't make sense. The rapid cremation plans, Linda's performance of grief versus actual grief, the designer clothes both she and Jessica wore, the people in the house I didn't recognize. Who were they? Who are all these people? I asked, gesturing to the living room where a dozen people milled about, drinking coffee, talking in hushed tones. "Oh, they're from my grief support group," Linda said, "and some friends from the neighborhood. They've been so supportive. I don't know what I'd do without them." Grief support group? Dad had only been dead for 12 hours. When did she have time to mobilize a grief support group? None of this added up. One of Linda's friends approached a tall woman with carefully styled gray hair and an expensive-looking pantsuit. "Linda, dear, I brought some casseroles. I put them in the fridge. You need to keep your strength up." "Thank you, Margaret. You're so kind." Linda squeezed the woman's hand. Margaret looked at me. "You must be Sarah. I'm so sorry for your loss. Your father was a wonderful man." "Did you know him well?" I asked. "Oh, well, I knew him through Linda. She's told me so. Much about him." "How long have you known Linda?" Margaret looked uncertain. "We met at, what was it, Linda? 3 months ago? At that charity luncheon?" 3 months. This woman had known Linda for 3 months, and was here in our house, being treated like a close family friend, while my father's actual friends and business associates were nowhere to be seen. Have you called Dad's friends? I asked Linda. Tom, Richard, the guys from his golf club, his business partners? Linda's expression tightened slightly. Of course. I've notified everyone important. Some people are out of town, others will come to the funeral. When is the funeral? Friday. I've already made the arrangements. It'll be at Riverview Cemetery, followed by a small reception here at the house. Friday? That's 3 days away. Don't you think that's fast? Sarah, your father wanted a prompt funeral. He hated the idea of a big, drawn-out affair. He wanted something simple, quick, and then, she paused, seemingly emotional. Then he wanted to be cremated and have his ashes scattered in the Columbia River Gorge. It's what he wanted. Cremation? The word came out sharper than I intended. Dad always said he wanted to be buried next to Mom. He said it multiple times. I specifically remember him saying it at Mom's funeral. Linda's expression hardened for just a moment, a crack in the mask before softening again. Actually, Sarah, he changed his mind. People's wishes change. He told me several times over the past year that he wanted to be cremated. Something about not wanting to take up space, wanting his ashes to be free, to be scattered somewhere beautiful. It's what he wanted. I was his wife. I knew what he wanted. The way she kept saying I was his wife felt like a territorial claim, a reminder of her legal standing. I don't believe that. Believe what you want, Linda said, her voice taking on an edge, the mask slipping slightly. I was his wife. I spent every day with him for 4 years. You visited twice a year. I think I knew what he wanted. The words stung because there was truth in them. I had only visited twice a year. I'd been busy with my career, my life in Chicago. I'd called regularly, but it wasn't the same as being there. Guilt washed over me, but underneath it was something else. Anger. Suspicion. Jessica placed a hand on my arm. Sarah, I know this is overwhelming. Why don't you go upstairs and rest? Your old room is still set up. Mom made sure of it. Your dad wanted to keep it exactly as you left it. I looked at Jessica's hand on my arm, her perfectly manicured nails, her expensive bracelet. Where had the nervous, quiet girl from the wedding gone? This Jessica was polished, confident, almost calculating. I think I will, I said, pulling my arm away gently. I need some time alone. Of course, Linda said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Take all the time you need, dear. We're here for you. The next 3 days were a blur of arrangements, visitors, and watching Linda play the grieving widow to perfection. I spent hours going through old photo albums in my room, remembering Dad, his laugh, his terrible dad jokes. The way he taught me to ride a bike, to drive a car, to analyze a financial statement. He'd been my hero, my mentor, my rock after Mom died, and now he was gone. But the more I watched Linda, the more convinced I became that something was very wrong. She'd taken over everything. Every decision about the funeral, the flowers, the music, the eulogy, all Linda. When I tried to offer input, she'd smile sympathetically and say, I've got it handled, dear. You just focus on grieving. She'd packed up Dad's clothes within 48 hours. They were just sitting there making me sad, she explained. I need to start the healing process. She'd changed the locks on the house. For security, she said. You never know who might try to take advantage during a vulnerable time. But she'd done it without telling me, and when I tried to use my key, it didn't work. She'd scheduled the cremation for immediately after the funeral. No viewing, no delay. It's what Robert wanted. Everything was moving too fast, like she was trying to erase Dad's existence as quickly as possible. The funeral was held on Friday, exactly as Linda had planned. It was at Riverview Cemetery, a beautiful place with old oak trees and a view of the river. The service was packed. My father had been a successful commercial real estate developer, well-liked in the community. Mitchell Properties had developed shopping centers, office buildings, and residential complexes all over the Portland metro area. Dad had a reputation for being fair, honest, and generous. Everyone had stories about Robert Mitchell, his generosity, his humor, his business acumen, his love for his daughter, his devotion to his late wife. Tom Henderson, Dad's best friend since college, gave a eulogy that had everyone in tears. He talked about their adventures, their business partnership in the early days, how Dad had helped him through his divorce, how Robert Mitchell was the kind of man who showed up when you needed him. Linda sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes, leaning on Jessica. She looked the part of the devastated widow perfectly. But I noticed something during the service. Tom kept glancing at Linda with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not sympathy, something else. Suspicion, confusion, and Martin Torres, my father's attorney for over 20 years, sat in the back row, separate from everyone else. He looked troubled, his jaw tight, his eyes constantly moving between Linda and me. After the service, during the reception at the house, I noticed something else odd. Many of Dad's longtime friends and business associates seemed uncomfortable. They offered me condolences, asked how I was doing, but several of them pulled me aside with strange comments. "If you need anything, Sarah, anything at all, call me," Tom Henderson said, pressing his business card into my hand. "I mean it, day or night. Sarah, your father was a good man," Richard Chen, no relation to Linda, ironically said. "He loved you very much, more than anything. Remember that." "Your father spoke highly of you," Margaret Powell, Dad's longtime business partner, said quietly. "He was very proud of you. He said you had integrity. Said you always asked the right questions. Don't stop asking questions, Sarah." These weren't normal condolence statements. They felt like coded messages, like warnings. During the reception at the house afterward, I noticed Martin Torres standing alone in the backyard, staring at Mount Hood in the distance. I approached him. "Martin, can we talk privately?" He looked relieved. "Yes, please. I was hoping you'd ask." We stepped into my father's study, a room filled with books, deal memorabilia, photos of me growing up, and awards from the Portland Business Journal and various community organizations. Martin closed the door carefully and looked at me with an intensity that made my heart race. "Sarah, I want you to know how sorry I am about your father. He was a good man, one of the best men I've ever known." "Thank you. Martin, I need to ask you something important. The will, when was it last updated?" Martin shifted uncomfortably, his discomfort obvious. "That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. Your father called me about 10 days ago. He said he needed to make some urgent changes to his estate plan. He sounded stressed, worried. He said it was important and couldn't wait. We scheduled an appointment for last Tuesday." My stomach dropped. "Last Tuesday? That's the day after he died." "Exactly. He never made it to the appointment. I waited in my office for 2 hours. He never showed, never called. Then the next morning, I heard. And the current will? What does it say?" Martin walked to the window, looking out at the party below Linda holding court, playing the grieving widow, accepting condolences. His jaw clenched. "The will that I have on file was last updated 5 years ago, before he married Linda. At that time, everything was left to you, the house, the business, all assets, approximately $12 million in total. You were the sole beneficiary. But Sarah," he turned to face me, "there's a problem. Linda has presented a new will, dated 6 months ago, that leaves everything to her." The room spun. I gripped the edge of Dad's desk. "What? It appears legitimate on the surface. Properly signed, witnessed by 2 people I don't know. In it, your father leaves the entire estate worth approximately $12 million to Linda. You're left with some personal items, your mother's jewelry, and a savings account with about $50,000. That's impossible. Dad would never—" "I know," Martin interrupted, his voice intense. "I don't have the original. Linda says it was kept in your father's safe at home. I never prepared this will, Sarah. I've been his attorney for 2 decades. I prepared every legal document your father ever signed. And he never once mentioned wanting to make these changes. Not once. We need to see the original. We need to verify it. Linda's already filed it with probate court. I've requested to examine it, but..." He looked troubled. "Sarah, I think there's something you should know. Your father called me late one night about 2 weeks ago. It was around 11 p.m., which was unusual. Robert rarely called that late. He sounded strange, worried, paranoid even. He asked me about marriage dissolution procedures in Oregon, asset protection strategies, what could be protected in a divorce. He was thinking about divorcing her? I think so. But then he said to forget it, that he was probably overreacting, that he'd call me back to discuss it properly. He never did. And then, a few days later, he called about changing his will. Said it was urgent. Did he say why? Did he explain what he wanted to change? No. He just said he needed to make some corrections, that he'd made some mistakes in judgment, and that he needed to protect what mattered most. I assumed he meant protecting you and the business. But he died before he could make those changes. Yes. Martin looked at me meaningfully. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? The implications were staggering. Dad had been planning to divorce Linda. He'd wanted to change his will urgently, and then, the day before his appointment with his attorney, he suddenly died of a massive heart attack. Martin, do you think, is it possible? I couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't say the words out loud. Martin looked me straight in the eye. I think you should be very careful, Sarah. I think you should ask questions. I think you should investigate. And I think you shouldn't trust anything Linda tells you. You think she killed him? I think the timing is suspicious. I think a healthy 62-year-old man dying suddenly the day before a crucial legal appointment is suspicious. I think a new will appearing that conveniently leaves everything to the surviving spouse is suspicious. And I think, he paused, I think your father was afraid of something. In that late-night phone call, he didn't just sound worried. He sounded scared. That night, after everyone left, Linda and Jessica were in the master bedroom sorting through my father's things, something that felt way too premature. Dad had been dead for less than a week, and they were already erasing him. I told them I needed some air, that I was going for a walk. Instead, I waited until I heard them upstairs, then I went into my father's study and locked the door. If there was evidence of anything suspicious, it would be here. I started with his desk, the desk where I'd sat on his lap as a child, watching him work. The desk where he'd helped me with my homework, taught me about business, explained financial statements, property documents, business files. Everything seemed normal at first glance. Then I found his personal calendar. He'd been old-fashioned about some things, keeping a physical planner despite having a smartphone. I flipped back through the months. Normal appointments, meetings, golf games, dinners, property viewings. But then I noticed something strange. Starting about 7 months ago, there were recurring appointments every 2 weeks. Dr. Reeves, 2 p.m. Dr. Reeves? I didn't recognize the name. Dad's regular doctor was Dr. Morrison. He'd been seeing him for 15 years. I pulled out my phone and searched. Dr. Patricia Reeves, cardiologist at Oregon Health and Science University. My father had been seeing a heart specialist for 7 months and never mentioned it? Why would he keep that secret? I dug deeper. In a locked drawer, I knew where Dad kept the spare key. In a fake book on the shelf, a hollowed-out copy of Moby Dick, I found medical records. Test results, EKGs, blood work, stress test results. I'm not a doctor, but I'd learned to read basic medical reports during my work analyzing healthcare companies. From what I could see, my father's heart had been perfectly healthy according to these tests. The most recent was from just 3 weeks ago. EKG, normal sinus rhythm. Blood pressure, 118/76 cholesterol. Within normal limits, stress test, passed with flying colors. Doctor's notes, patient in excellent cardiovascular health. No signs of coronary artery disease, no intervention needed, follow-up in 6 months. So, why the massive heart attack? Then I found something else that made my blood run cold. A small notebook tucked behind some files in the back of the drawer. I opened it. It was a list of transactions, cash withdrawals from my father's accounts, meticulously documented in his handwriting. March 15, $5,000, L withdrew. Didn't ask March 28, $3,500, another withdrawal. L says household expenses April 12, $7,500. L took cash from safe April 30, $6,000. Noticed missing. L claimed she told me she didn't May 10. $4,500, credit card cash advance, L's card on my account. The list went on. Over the past 8 months, nearly $75,000 in unexplained cash withdrawals, all connected to Linda. And notes in my father's handwriting. L withdrew, didn't ask. Another $5K missing, need to confront her. Can't keep ignoring this. She's lying about where money is going. Checked her story about her. Mother's medical bills. Mother has been dead for 3 years. Where is the money really going? My hands were shaking. Linda had been stealing from him, systematically, for months. I kept searching. Behind a framed photo of me and Dad at my college graduation, I found a USB drive taped to the back. I pulled it out and plugged it into Dad's computer. It was password protected. I tried several combinations, my birthday, my parents' anniversary, my mother's birthday. Nothing worked. Then I remembered something. When I was little, Dad and I had a special code. If I was ever in trouble, if I ever needed him, I was supposed to use our secret number, 031492. The 14th of March, 1992, the day I was born, at exactly 9:14 a.m., and Dad always said it was the best moment of his life. I typed 031492. The drive opened. Inside were dozens of files. Screenshots, PDFs, photos, video files. I clicked on a document titled Evidence. It was a detailed log, written by my father, documenting everything. I think Linda is stealing from me. I've noticed several unexplained cash withdrawals from our joint account. When I asked her about them, she became defensive and claimed they were for household expenses, but the amounts don't match up. $5,000 for groceries? That's absurd. I'm going to start documenting everything. Confirmed, Linda is definitely taking money without telling me. I found credit card statements showing cash advances totaling $8,500 this month alone. When I confronted her, she got angry and accused me of not trusting her. She said the money was for her mother's medical bills. I called to check on her mother, felt guilty for doubting, only to discover from her brother that their mother died 3 years ago. When I confronted Linda with this, she claimed I misunderstood, that she meant her aunt, not her mother. I don't believe her. I've been monitoring our accounts carefully. The cash withdrawals continue. I also noticed Linda has been receiving large deposits into a personal account. I didn't know she had an account that's not in both our names. Where is this money coming from? I hired a private investigator. I feel terrible about it, but I need to know what's happening. The PI's report came back. I wish I hadn't seen it. Linda has been running up debts in Jessica's name, credit cards, personal loans. They're in serious financial trouble. Apparently, Jessica made some bad investments in cryptocurrency and lost nearly $200,000. Linda borrowed from loan sharks to cover it and has been using my money to pay them back. But that's not all. The PI discovered Linda has done this before. Her first husband, Thomas Chen, died 12 years ago in what was ruled a car accident. She received a $500,000 life insurance payout. The PI found newspaper articles raising questions about the accident. The brake lines had been compromised, but the investigation was closed when it was ruled inconclusive. I'm married to a woman who might have killed her first husband. I've been sleeping in the guest room for the past week. Told Linda I have insomnia and don't want to disturb her, but the truth is I'm afraid. I started researching Linda's background more thoroughly. Her financial history is a disaster: bankruptcies, liens, judgments. She had nothing when we met. I thought she was a successful pharmaceutical sales rep, but I can't find any record of her working in pharma for the past 5 years before we met. She targeted me. I'm sure of it now. She found a lonely widower with money and she played me perfectly. I've noticed Linda watching videos on her laptop about cardiac medications and toxins. When I walked in on her, she quickly closed her browser. I installed monitoring software on her computer. I know it's an invasion of privacy, but I'm genuinely afraid now. The browsing history is terrifying. Cardiac medications that cause heart attacks. Digoxin toxicity symptoms. How long does poison stay in the system? Undetectable causes of death. Life insurance payout after spousal. Death. I need to get out. I need to protect myself and protect Sarah. I've made an appointment with Martin to file for divorce and change my will. The appointment is for July 12th. I'm going to move all my assets into a trust for Sarah and make sure Linda can't touch anything. I haven't told Linda yet. I'm afraid of how she'll react. I've started feeling sick lately, nausea, dizziness, fatigue. I thought it was stress, but what if? I've made an appointment with a cardiologist, Dr. Reeves, just to be safe. If Linda is doing something to me, I need to find out. Dr. Reeves says my heart is perfectly healthy. All tests came back normal. So why am I feeling so awful? I've started refusing any food or drink that Linda prepares unless I watch her make it. She's noticed and is asking questions. I made up an excuse about having an upset stomach. The appointment with Martin is in 12 days. I just need to survive 12 more days. I'm running out of time. This morning I found an empty vial in Linda's bathroom cabinet. Digoxin. It's a heart medication, but we don't have heart conditions. I looked it up in high doses. Digoxin causes heart attacks that can look natural. I confronted her. It was a mistake. She denied everything, but her eyes. I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Something cold and calculating. She knows that I know. I've moved up my meeting with Martin to July 10th this Monday. I need to move faster. I'm going to tell him everything. File for immediate divorce. Get a restraining order. Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I brought this woman into our lives. I'm sorry I was so lonely after your mother died that I didn't see Linda for what she really was. I love you. You're the best thing I ever did in this life. Everything I have is yours. Don't let her take it. I've saved all the evidence here. Screenshots of her browsing history, the PI report, financial records showing the theft, everything. Password is your birthday plus our old address, 031492218471847, Maple Drive, where we lived when you were born. If anything happens to me, please investigate. Please get justice. Please don't let her win. I love you, sweetheart. Dad, I can't. Sleep. I've been feeling worse chest pains, irregular heartbeat. I think she's been poisoning me slowly, making it look like heart disease developing. That way, when the final dose comes, it won't seem suspicious. I'm going to the office early this morning. I need to get some documents for my safe there life insurance policies, property deeds, everything. I need to have everything ready for the meeting with Martin tomorrow. I'm leaving this drive hidden in the study, behind Sarah's graduation photo. If I don't make it to the meeting with Martin, someone will find this. Linda doesn't know about this study. She never comes in here. Sarah, please forgive me for everything. I love you. I sat in Dad's chair, tears streaming down my face, my whole body shaking. He knew. He knew what Linda was planning. He documented everything. He tried to protect himself and protect me, and she killed him anyway. There was a soft knock on the door. Sarah? Are you in there? Jessica's voice, sweet and concerned. I quickly closed the files, pulled out the USB drive, and slipped it into my pocket. I wiped my tears and opened the door. Jessica stood there with 2 glasses of wine, wearing an expression of sympathy. Thought you might need this, she said, offering me one. I know this is hard. Losing a parent. I lost my dad when I was 12. Car accident. It never really gets easier. I took the wine but didn't drink it. I'd learned from Dad's notes to be careful. Thanks, I managed. Jessica sat down without being invited. Look, I know things are weird between our families. You never really accepted my mom marrying your dad, but for what it's worth, she really did love him. She's devastated. Is she? The words came out before I could stop them, harder than I intended. Jessica's expression shifted slightly, a micro expression of surprise before she controlled it. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Forget it. No, you clearly think something. Sarah, you've been watching my mom like she's a criminal. At the funeral during the reception, you barely spoke to her. You've been cold and distant. What's going on? My father was perfectly healthy, Jessica. And now he's suddenly dead, and conveniently there's a new will leaving everything to Linda? You don't think that's suspicious? Jessica stood up, her face flushing with what looked like genuine anger. You think my mother killed your father? Are you insane? I didn't say that. You implied it. Sarah, I know you're grieving, but you're looking for someone to blame. Sometimes people just die. Heart attacks happen, even to healthy people. And as for the will, maybe your father loved my mother and wanted to take care of her. Did you ever think of that? Not everyone is as selfish as you. Selfish? You left, Sarah. You moved to Chicago and barely visited. Your dad was lonely. My mom gave him companionship, love, a reason to live. And now you're angry because he wanted to take care of her after he was gone. That's selfish. The words hurt because there was a kernel of truth to them. I had left. I'd only visited twice a year. My father called his lawyer 10 days ago wanting to change his will. I said quietly. He never made it to that appointment because he died the day before it. Jessica's expression flickered surprise, quickly masked. A pause that lasted a fraction too long before she responded. I don't know anything about that. Doesn't that seem convenient to you? What seems convenient is you creating conspiracy theories to avoid accepting reality. Your dad's gone, Sarah. Let him rest in peace. She set down her wine glass hard enough that it sloshed onto Dad's desk. You know what? I tried to be nice, but you're impossible. If you want to spend your time making wild accusations instead of mourning your father properly, that's your choice. She left, slamming the door behind her. But I'd seen something in her eyes. Doubt? Fear? Guilt? She knew something. And that slip about me being selfish felt rehearsed, like something she and Linda had discussed. Like she was trying to manipulate me with guilt. It wasn't going to work. The next morning, armed with Dad's documentation, I went to Mitchell Properties downtown. The office occupied the entire 5th floor of a building. Dad had developed himself a beautiful, modern structure with floor-to-ceiling windows and sustainable design features. Janet, his executive assistant for 15 years, burst into tears when she saw me. "Oh, Sarah, I can't believe he's gone. It doesn't feel real. I keep expecting him to walk through that door with his coffee and his terrible jokes." She hugged me tightly. "How are you holding up?" "I'm managing." "Janet, can I ask you something? Did my dad seem okay the last few weeks? Any health problems? Stress? Anything unusual?" Janet wiped her eyes and thought about it carefully. He'd seemed a bit distracted, maybe. Worried about something. He was more quiet than usual. But physically, he seemed fine. Actually, he seemed great. He was actually in really good spirits last Monday. He'd just closed a big deal on that property in Beaverton. He was excited about it. Said it was going to be a game changer for the company. Last Monday? The day before he died? Yes. He was practically bouncing around the office, making plans, talking about the future. He told me he was taking you to Alaska in August, that he couldn't wait. He seemed happy, full of life. Full of life on Monday, dead on Tuesday. The timeline made Linda's story even more suspicious. "Janet, did Linda ever come to the office?" Janet's expression became guarded. "A few times, usually for lunch with your father. Although..." She hesitated. "What? About 2 weeks ago? She came when your father wasn't here. She called first, said she needed to pick something up from his office urgently, some documents he'd forgotten at home. I let her in. I mean, she's his wife. I didn't think anything of it at the time. How long was she in his office? Maybe 20 minutes? 25? I was on a conference call, so I wasn't really paying attention. When I came back, she was leaving. She seemed flustered. In a hurry. 25 minutes alone in Dad's office? What had she been looking for? Or planting? Janet, does this building have security cameras? Of course. Your father insisted on a comprehensive system after that break-in attempt 2 years ago? Cameras everywhere, lobby, elevators, hallways, parking garage. Can you access footage from the morning my father died? And the weeks before? Janet looked uncertain, worry creasing her features. I can try, but Sarah, why, please? It's important. Really important. Something in my tone must have convinced her because she nodded. Okay, let me call security. Sarah went to the building's security office with Janet. The guard, Marcus, knew Sarah and wanted to help. She asked him to show footage from the morning her father died and the previous weeks. They watched the cameras. At 5:47 a.m., they saw Linda's white BMW, not her father's car, arriving at his parking spot. Linda looked nervous and carried a big, expensive bag. She stayed inside the building for 23 minutes, left without the bag, and drove toward Sarah's father's house. Janet and Sarah were shocked. Linda had told everyone her father collapsed at home around 5:30 a.m., but here she was at the office at 6 a.m. Marcus checked earlier footage. At 5:03 a.m., Sarah's father arrived at the building healthy and normal. He waved at security and went to his office. This proved he had been fine that morning and did not collapse at home. They checked the 5th floor camera. It showed Linda entering his office at 5:51 a.m. and leaving at 6:14 a.m., looking panicked and frantic. Sarah realized something terrible happened during those 23 minutes. She turned to Marcus. We need to call the police, now. Sarah went to the hospital to speak with the doctor who treated her father. Doctor, Park explained. Linda brought her father in at 6:47 a.m. He was already in cardiac arrest. They tried to save him but could not, because looked like a major heart attack. But something was strange. Doctor, Park said her father had unusual symptoms. Tiny pupils, too much saliva muscle twitching. These signs did not match a normal heart attack. They could match poisoning. Standard tests showed nothing. But Doctor, Park explained that many poisons need special tests and would not appear on normal screens. Sarah told him Linda worked in pharmaceuticals. The doctor told her, if you think this was poisoning, you must stop the cremation. You must talk to the medical examiner and the police. Sarah called 911 immediately. Detective Maria Santos contacted her within an hour and asked her to come to the precinct. Sarah gave the detective everything. Her father's notes, the fake will, the security footage, Linda's suspicious behavior proof. Linda's first husband also died strangely. Detective Santos believed her and said she would stop the cremation. She would order a full toxicology test. She would begin interviewing everyone. She told Sarah not to warn Linda. These cases are hard, but she would do everything possible. Sarah left the station knowing the truth was finally coming out. Sarah stayed in a hotel because she did not feel safe in the house. That night, she went back secretly to find her father's real will. She waited until Linda and Jessica were asleep, then used her back door key to enter the house quietly. She went to the master bedroom where her father's safe was hidden in the closet. She used the combination he had taught her years ago. Inside, she found jewelry, cash, documents, and a new will that gave everything to Linda and only $50,000 to her. But something looked wrong. The signature did not match her father's real signature. She compared it with photos on her phone. It was a forgery. As she put everything back, she heard a noise. Jessica was standing behind her and knew exactly what Sarah was doing. Linda woke up and confronted Sarah too. They argued. Sarah accused Linda of lying about her father's death and showed she knew about the security footage. Then Jessica broke down and admitted everything. Linda had lied. She had been at the office with Sarah's father the morning he died. Jessica said she could not hide the truth anymore. Linda became furious and tried to attack Sarah. Sarah ran outside, shouting for help. Neighbors saw everything. Police arrived quickly. Sarah told them what happened. Jessica begged to finally tell the truth. Linda tried to lie, but the mask was already off. Detective Santos was called in immediately. At the police station, Jessica confessed. She told Detective Santos that Linda had planned the murder for months. They both owed money to dangerous people. Linda decided to kill Sarah's father for his money. Linda used a deadly heart medicine called digoxin. She put small amounts in his food for weeks to make him look sick. On the final day, she gave him a huge dose in a smoothie at his office. He collapsed and died. Then she staged it as a heart attack at home. Jessica explained that she was scared of her mother and of the loan sharks, so she helped cover up the crime. She also admitted that her mother had killed her first husband many years ago. Police gathered all evidence: the forged will, the fake witnesses, the footage, the poison tests. Everything matched Jessica's story. Linda was arrested. Jessica agreed to testify in exchange for a lighter sentence. Sarah spoke with Jessica later. Jessica apologized and said she would live with this guilt forever. 9 months later, the trial began. Evidence was strong. Poison found in his system. Security footage proving Linda lied. The forged will, Linda's financial trouble. Jessica's full confession. The forger's testimony. Evidence that Linda killed her first husband. The defense tried to blame Jessica. It failed. The jury found Linda guilty of murder and fraud. She got life in prison with no parole. Jessica got 20 years for helping, but would be eligible for parole after 15. Sarah took over her father's estate. The real will was restored. She inherited the house, the business, and his assets. She remodeled the house, removed everything of Linda's, and built a new peaceful life. She started a foundation in her father's name to help families and victims. She visited her father's grave weekly and worked hard to grow his business. She kept the dollhouse as a reminder of his love. She forgave Jessica but understood she still had to face her punishment. Sarah learned that evil can hide behind a smile, but truth always rises. Her father's final gift was the strength to uncover that truth. This is Sarah Mitchell, reminding you that blood may be thicker than water, but love and truth are thicker than both. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please like this video and subscribe for more true crime stories. Leave a comment below. Have you ever suspected foul play in your family? What would you have done in my situation? How do you think the justice system handled this case? Remember, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. Document everything. Ask questions. It might just save a life, or bring justice to someone who deserves it.